everyone, welcome back to episode, I think it's 5 of B2TEA, and we don't have any special guests, so it's just our lovely smiling faces. I have a different mug today. This is the Office mug because Daniel and Jane Marie on the last episode were waxing eloquent about The Office. So this is a particularly unhinged Michael Scott escapade. So if you haven't seen The Office, it's probably something you should see if you work in an office. And yeah, oh, Melanie, you got a mug as well, it looks like.
Yes, I had moved away from my mug, but yes, this was a gift from a colleague because somebody took my mug one day and she was like, well, if we put your name on it, no one will take your mug.
There you go. That's a good gift. Okay. So let's jump into our topics. So the first topic that I would like to talk about this is a very technical marketing topic, but I think it's a valuable thing to talk about, which is what is the most important information that you can gather on an intake form? So if somebody shows up to your website, they're interested in buying your product, they want to talk more about it, they have questions and they request a demo or something, what should you capture first and foremost? Should it be an email, a phone number, et cetera, et cetera?
When you're designing an intake form, right? I think part of what your question is getting at is you want the form to be brief enough that people are going to fill it out, but long enough that you get enough information to follow up in an effective way. But what I prefer to do with my intake forms is I'll make the email address required. And then I'll make the phone number optional. And that's just because it seems that the trend is most people want to have their first contact by email. But if they're one of the rare that do prefer phone, it's very good to have that phone number on hand.
Yeah, I think from a consumer perspective, if you're going through and you're filling out an intake form, then chances are you're not going to worry. Email open rates are much lower than text message open rates, for instance. But if you're going through and you're basically putting in all that effort to have it fill out that form, like it doesn't matter at that point, the email open rate, you're going to open that email. And I think that's just like a less obtrusive way to go about it. I think it's kind of obnoxious. Like if I would personally go and fill out an intake form and they make me put in my phone number, I'm like, I really hope they don't call me. Because I don't want to answer that call. Now, there might be a generational gap here. And also, if they text me, that's also kind of fine. Email or text to me is like, okay, sure. The good news about an email is like you can get more information out. So I am kind of with you, Melanie. Like I think like making the email required and providing an option for the phone if that's what they want, like sure. But the email seems to be like the general way to go.
Yeah, and I think that you really hit on an important point, Sam, that if someone is already filling out an interest form, that means that they have a compelling interest in the product. Like you don't just fill out an interest form unless you are serious about it. So on the one hand, you don't want the interest form to be so long that people don't fill it out. But the fact that they're choosing to fill out anything at all kind of means that they're serious about it. They want to, have a conversation. They want to start something. So I think that interest forms should not be more than one page. Like if I have to go through multiple pages, then that's when I start to get annoyed. But if it's like a form that says like, hey, how many people are in your company? What's this? Like I wouldn't mind filling that out because I already have a pre-existing interest in the product.
The other thing about a phone number is that you don't know, you might not know whether they prefer you to text them or to call them. Whereas with an email address, it's a little bit less ambiguous. And you can clarify in your email how they want to be contacted.
Now, you could, for instance, like have a little check like text, call, right in your form.
Which I think would be cool. We don't have that in our intake form right now, but as we're talking about this, I can't help but think, should we do that?
Considering like our main product is like unobtrusive business texting, that might not be the worst idea.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool, honestly, if you just had like check this if you want to be texted, otherwise we'll email you. Because you have to have it be, the default has to be email, right? But if they want to go through that extra, like absolutely, we'd love. Now I don't know if something to consider, Melanie.
I would be more cautious of putting my phone number down, only because, on the daily basis, I get like a million spam calls and texts. So I'm already more or less inclined to pick up a phone. But sending a text message or through like an email, I'm more like, it's not like an urgency for me to respond. It's something that, pops up whenever I check it. And I do believe, like, I agree with everyone, like having an email is like a solid base form of like contact, including like a name and
Yeah, this is in the context of lead generation, right? Like making new contact with customers. Because I will say that if I'm a pre-existing customer, I do not want them to email me. I want to be on the phone with someone who I can talk to.
Yeah, you just made a very important point, which is I think people prefer to be contacted for, like as a prospect. I think they prefer to be contacted by email. And I think but for customer service, like you almost always want to be on the phone with someone, or at least most people I talk to. Now, again, personally, I would prefer to simply like interact with an AI bot. As long as the AI bot is effective, like obviously like Amazon, fantastic at this. Chipotle, very, very good for a while, less so lately, but like these are like, I would prefer to have my problem solved without ever having to like leave this like bot that I'm talking to. But in lieu of that, then yeah, talking to an actual person usually has the best results.
I just feel like we should mention the cool project that we have where our chatbot automatically collects some information to schedule demos for people. So it sounds like we'd be meeting the desire of a Sam prospect.
Yeah, that's good. That's a classic target demographic, me.
Yeah, the amount of effort that our AI team has been putting into that is insane. And the amount, that bot could also tell you the weather. They just decided to randomly add that feature. They were like, oh yeah, I've been doing that. I'm like, what is it like in Telugu right now? And it'll tell you.
So now this is kind of like a very conceptual question. And we're still on the intake form, by the way. So conceptual question is just like, what would be the most value from I'm gathering the information perspective, right? So I am not the prospect, I'm on the other side of it, and I'm talking to prospects. What's sort of the number one thing that you want to know that's not like contact information? So some samples here might be like company size, or like opportunity size, or location, or something like that.
We specifically are interested in the region that the customer is from, because if we can collect the region from them, then we know which sales representative to assign the case to, and we can kind of skip a step of establishing that. It is optional on the form because almost all of these things, we don't want to bog down somebody, but the region is important. And then opportunity size is important because there is a lower threshold for our service. And it also just sort of helps with our lead tracking to know from the start how much the customer may have thought that they wanted, so that we can kind of track whether sales was able to upsell and get more, a bigger opportunity or a lesser opportunity as the customer moves through the pipeline. And the last thing that I try to make sure to collect is what product offering, that they're interested in, because we sell a few different product offerings. And so just having that information before the call is even scheduled can help our sales representatives have collateral ready for the call.
Okay, let's move on to the second topic. And this is prescient because Melanie is wearing some branded apparel right now, and we love branded apparel at this company. However, there are other companies that have dress codes, and I think this is a lot more prevalent in the past and has been changing, which is why I think it's an interesting question. So what do we think about dress codes in general? And especially specifically for office, like obviously there's other, areas of life, like some schools have dress codes and things like that, and that makes a lot of sense. But what do we think about one, the concept of a dress code, and then two, what should be the dress code? Like there's plenty of options here. Should it be business formal? Should it be business casual? Should it be branded apparel all the time? What do we think?
I specifically am in a field where it's usually optional, right? Or at least to an extent, it could be optional because I'm not customer facing. When it comes to like making, business casual or logo wear, that's usually because you're the face of the company for some reason. I mean, that's a huge part. Now, when it comes to sort of old school professions that make everybody kind of dress up in professional wear for like status and respect reasons, it's not my scene, I gotta say. So I appreciate the freedom of not doing that, but I also understand like why some people appreciate that. I've heard people say like, oh, when I get into my, business casual wear, it like puts me in the mindset, to work. And, so some people might appreciate that culture. But, I think that it's definitely critical that if you're going to have a professional dress code, that you're not discriminatory about it because, we have a unfortunate history in the business world of calling certain styles that are associated with certain cultures like unprofessional. And I think that that's just like something we need to leave behind. And but otherwise, yeah, I prefer to be able to wear what I want to work, and I kind of picked workplaces that let me do that, especially after the pandemic. All my clothes kind of changed during lockdown, so I would have to buy a whole new wardrobe if it became like a professional wear situation. But takes all kinds of businesses to make a world, doesn't it?
Do y'all know Alpha Kappa Psi?
Is that a fraternity?
Yeah, it's a business fraternity. I was in AK Psi, and one of the things that they taught us was it's a business fraternity, and it's like actually like very well connected to a lot of like top financial firms. Of course, I didn't ever get into that because I'm marketing, right? But I rushed AK Psi, and they have a philosophy about how you conduct yourself in a way that leads to excellence. And they do, when you pledge, you have to like show up in business attire, and you have to be put together. And a lot of that training is really just like paying attention to details, like if you can show that you pay attention to details about yourself and the way that you dress, it shows that you're self-aware. It shows that you like understand culture. It shows that you're capable of looking at the people around you and seeing what they're doing and emulating it, fitting into a culture, picking up on whatever culture you're in, that type of thing. So all of those things that the fraternity would, teaches its pledges before they become brothers are generally important as you establish business culture. That being said, oh, and also I really think that school uniforms are good, especially for girls. Teenage girls probably should wear school uniforms, just in general for like the mental health of the other children in that school. But yeah, I put zero effort into the way that I look when I'm working because, our company is a lot more focused on what we produce. And in general, if I don't have to pay attention to the way I look, like I don't.
I believe like, everyone should know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate when it comes to like office attire. But at the same time, I do believe like the way you dress is also like a form of self-expression in a way. And going back to the point where it's like, we're in marketing, and so we're not really entirely a customer facing role. I like to have like that option to be casual or business casual and comfortable while I do my work. And I do think dress codes in general, there is like some utilitarian like emphasis behind it, and like it does like impact, some people negatively, like what Melanie was saying earlier about what is someone's culture is considered inappropriate in like office culture or office attire, sorry. And sometimes that's like not the case usually. So I think that, offices should imply like maybe not so much of a dress code really, because we're here to work, do our work. But it also depends on which department you're in.
Yeah, great point for sure. Yeah, I lean away from mandatory things for dress code for a lot of the reasons that have just been said. But and especially now that, often in a company, right, everyone's an adult, right? Like you should know what's appropriate and what's not. I think the most important part about, the way in which dress codes do function well is creating a sense of team. And I think that like anytime that you're looking at creating like a uniform or a set of like guidelines, it should be for the purpose of like fostering a sense of togetherness. And to do that effectively, I think you will probably want it to not be mandatory, but make it appealing enough so that people want to be a part of it and they want to do it. Which means like, again, if you're creating branded apparel, it means making it fun and cool so that people want to wear it. They want to say, yeah, I'm part of this team. And you think about like, especially in Europe, but also in America as well, like people are rabid sports fans, right? And they're not even a part of the Philadelphia Eagles organization or shout out Dennis, the New York Giants organization, but they might wear a New York Giants shirt, right? And now we're part of a company, right? Like we're part of this team. Like, yes, we should probably want to wear at least something, right? Especially if you're talking to somebody you're on a visit out to some T-Mobile office or something, right? You should probably want to be like, yeah, I'm a part of this team. I'm going to like, and that's on us to create as the marketing team for sure. But also it's on like everyone. It's like, this is something that we want to be a part of. And I don't think you get there by mandating it. I think some people might argue that you can get there by mandating it. You can kind of like shortcut it, but that does, if you mandate it and it's not something that's appealing, then eventually people will rebel against it. They might like comply if you put like penalties against it or something, but eventually, it won't work and people will figure out ways to subvert it. And the moment you have somebody and people in general looking to subvert it because it's mandatory and they don't like it, I think that's when you really start running into like cultural issues for sure. So back to Jane Marie's point a little bit, like I think one of the best, like understanding the quote unquote rules about like any sort of like attire or and then understanding how to break them in a way that like works, I think is like a really, really valuable skill, especially in like creative fields for sure.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to point out one more thing, which is that even though I think all of us on this call, have been talking about like, yeah, self-expression, it's great, being comfortable is great. It's not entirely about the individual. And so as long as everybody understands that, like, I think that there is kind of a sense that you want to be like respectful of others. So, you want to be clean and you don't want to be distracting. But like, how do you codify that? It just seems like it's an issue when you try to codify that. But I think that's why we're kind of like, we're all adults here. But it doesn't mean that we're like saying that there should be a free for all. It's just
Right.
It's kind of hard to codify what is distracting and and then some of it is just so common sense.
Yeah, it's almost better to like set is basically to like set like, hey, we're representing the brand or like we're representing this and here's how we represent it. and and we'll provide the tools, whether it's like hey, well, we prefer, this kind of look if you're out, or hey, we want you to wear branded apparel, so here it is, right?
Yeah.
Then you give something for people to aspire to versus like a baseline for them to meet. And I think that generally works better as a rule. If you're clear about what people should be aspiring to and you give them the tools to get there, I think people generally respond to that. So the last one is we'll play Would You Rather. So let's get some quick reactions. And again, nothing unhinged, but it should be a pretty interesting activity. So the first one is espresso machine in the office or cute cafe 5-minute walk away.
Cute cafe, 5-minute walk away, 100% of the time. And I'll fight y'all if y'all say something else.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm espresso machine in the office.
That's insane.
I don't want to have to go anywhere.
Okay. Because it's free. I understand, because
And
it's
it's free. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. But like, if you can choose between having an espresso from a machine or having a latte that's made with milk and love, that's like asking someone, hey, would you prefer to eat a croissant or a donut from the gas station? Like, it's not.
I don't need love in my coffee, in my black coffee.
Okay.
I just need bean juice.
Function. Form over function. Erika,
Also,
what do you think? Sorry.
Those are very solid points. Like, I am a sucker for coffee shops. Like, I would drive 30 minutes max for a cute coffee shop. But in terms of convenience and not wanting to leave like a place that I'm already arrived at, I could never say no to free coffee. So. Free coffee or a $6 latte in this economy.
I am going to go with Jane Marie here. I want the cute coffee shop. And the reason I want it is because let's say like Erika, Jane Marie, and I, and Melanie, let's be inclusive. We're all working on a project together and we're going insane. Let's walk to a coffee shop and grab a latte at 2 in the afternoon. That breakup, I think, is key. Like the physical act of like getting into a different space, I think is a really, really valuable thing. So given like an either or, I'm absolutely taking the Q coffee shop. And I'm sort of like demanding that we have a coffee budget, just to like offset the amount of dollars that I spend. But obviously you'd prefer to have both. This was the beautiful, yeah. I've had offices where you have like a Keurig and also a Phil's Coffee, which is a Bay Area thing, 2 minutes a walk away. And man, did I go to the Phil's every day. So I know which one. I not only know which one I would conceptually choose, I know which one I chose in reality.
Yeah, I would pick a cute coffee shop over a Keurig.
Yeah, that's why I had to make it like a nice espresso machine.
Yeah, if it's a nice espresso machine, then I'm good. I'll take an
Which,
espresso machine.
to be clear, Jane Marie, with a nice espresso machine, you can make your own latte and you can put love into it in the office.
I mean, but can you make your own
Yes.
latte? Have you ever tried to steam milk like by yourself with your own espresso machine? Was it successful?
Yeah. To be clear, though, I was a barista for a year.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
worked at a local coffee shop for a year. And
Okay.
now my father has a very nice espresso setup that is coffee shop level. And so, yes, I can do that.
Okay.
So I might
Cool.
be like a little bit of an odd choice here for that, but it is possible. And like, yeah, if we're working together, I can make it. I'm there. I'm built in.
That's true. Okay. If Sam can make my lattes, then I would prefer to do that. But if it's not, I will never go to a coffee shop and order black espresso. because that's like, I don't even know. I can't even think of an analogy as dark. That's like voluntarily saying, you know, I don't want to work in marketing. I want to go work in a coal mine or something. I don't know. Black espresso has loses the joy of coffee. So
disagree.
Kimberly, you're a writer. You
I
need
am.
black espresso and honestly probably a cigarette. Like that's your whole, that should be your whole like prestige right there.
The entire aesthetic.
Yeah. All right, next would you rather is 30-minute car commute, 45-minute train commute.
Train.
I want to say car. Only because I prefer to have my own space. Like in my car, I can like, if I'm hungry, just reach over for my bag for a snack, or, you know, I wouldn't have to deal with like unnecessary delays, but I guess like traffic kind of makes up for it. Yeah, I just feel like I love to have my own bubble when I'm traveling. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm in Atlanta, so yeah, here it's I risk my life every day on the road, and there's a little bit of drama on MARTA sometimes, but I think overall I'm safer on MARTA, and
Yeah, that's true.
so I wish that I had that option. I'm just not quite on the right bus route because, you know, our new office does have a complimentary shuttle from MARTA, which is very cool. So, you know.
That is cool. That's a great feature of our new office.
Yeah, so I wish my house was near MARTA so that it would make sense for me to drive to MARTA instead.
Yeah,
It would
I
be
will say
cheaper,
that
too.
it would be cheaper. That's true. Yeah, when I was in college, I saved so much money taking MARTA to the airport instead of Ubers. Like it was the difference between paying $2 and $50 every time. But Emory's not connected to MARTA, so that's, you had to take an Uber to the thing like 3 miles away, whatever. Yeah, I would probably go train like Melanie, just because then I'm not personally responsible. The thing that scares me about driving is not that I will get in an accident, it is that I will be distracted and then I will cause someone else to be in an accident, right? Like
Yeah.
that amount of responsibility is really like quite terrifying to me, and my sense of like, I don't know, like responsibility for my fellow humans. And I really do prefer just sitting on a train. I can be on my phone.
Yeah. So I struggle with this question, which is why I wanted to ask you guys. So here's my key problem with this question is that 15 minutes each way is 30 minutes a day. 5 days a week is 2.5 hours a week times 50 weeks a year is 125 hours a year, which is a significant amount of time, right? Like that's probably like 4 or 5 days that you're spending extra commuting. So for me, it's car, unless now the difference between a train though is that if you're on the train, like Jane Marie says, you don't have to like you're not driving the train. So you can kind of like do whatever you want. So if that train ride, and especially if there's no stops, right? If it's just like I walk a minute and then I grab on a train and then I have 40 minutes on the train and then I walk 5 minutes to my office. Now we're talking of like, okay, that's 40 minutes where I can just kind of like park myself in a seat and do other things. So if you can redeem that 45 minutes, then all of a sudden the train becomes way more of an efficient option. And again, whatever it works for you, if like people watching is your thing, then absolutely the train, or if, you know, you can grab your laptop out, like trains in Europe, for instance, often have Wi-Fi. So, and you can like catch up on your emails on the train or something like that. Now we're talking. So it kind of depends on what the actual like situation with the train is, I feel like, for to justify that 125 hours that you're quote unquote losing in your commute. Well, if you can not lose it by taking the train, then that's my answer. All right, last would you rather. And this is a would you rather question I came up with at the beginning of this call, and we were talking about daylight savings time. Would you rather get into the office before the sun comes up or leave the office after the sun goes down?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be the first one. You know, let's have that that daylight in the morning. I'm willing to trade off that a little bit of darkness at night.
Yeah, I prefer to have a lot of sunlight right when I leave the office. I I find it hard, especially during the fall time when it's dark when I go in the office and dark when I leave the office. So, having to invest in a sad lamp or happy lamp or you know, I need that. I need sunlight in order for me to function well. So I wouldn't mind getting rid of daylight savings and just having my sunsets at 8 p.m. because then I'll feel more productive with my day. When the sun goes down, I wouldn't really want to do much. It'll make me feel more in my cocoon. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Erika. I like walking. I used to say that I would get up in the morning and walk my dogs, and that happens absolutely never. I always walk my dogs after work, and it's nice when it's light out. So
I think this is an anti-daylight savings podcast now. I think we're all anti-daylight savings. I would probably prefer that the sun is up when I leave, because then, right, like your day is done, but you still feel like you can do things with it, I think. And I think that's really mentally important for me. I have a happy lamp, sled lamp. Again, Erika and I, California kids, we need sun all the time. However, I've been reading a lot of research that it's super important to get sunlight before looking at your phone or your computer for your circadian rhythms. And so now I'm kind of torn, right? Obviously, I prefer both, but if it really is that valuable to get up and go for a walk and face the sun in the morning for your body's circadian rhythms to function more properly, then that might be something valuable to think about too. Cool. Great episode, everyone. This has been another episode of B2TEA. If you liked it, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or check out Movius.ai to learn more. Thanks, everyone.